In the dying days of 2021, Seiko has introduced another two Prospex divers, the SLA055 and 057. Let's get into it and I'll give you a hot take. Before I go on, a few things to point out. A hot take is just that, not a critique, not a review. I haven't seen this watch in person, I haven't had it in hand. This is based on the same videos, renders and pictures that you've seen. So I would recommend you treat that with caution. The second thing is, often with my hot takes, it's less about the watch and more about what the watch is saying and telling us about the brand, the industry in general, and of course about the watch itself. If you're interested in any of that, I'll see you on the other side of the intro and we can get into it. Okay, so let's get into it. These are my hot takes on the new Seiko Prospex SLA057 and 055 divers. 1. This watch is a deliberate attempt from Seiko to continue blurring the lines between where Seiko Prospex ends and Grand Seiko begins. If you look at the pricing, if you look at the overall sort of styling of this watch, particularly the case and the bezel, if you look at the way this watch is presented and finished, the movements inside it, it's almost like Seiko sat down and deliberately said, how do we blur the lines between where Prospex and Grand Seiko are? This is a watch that almost looks like a hybrid of those two brands. I think what we're seeing here is, for all of Seiko's talk, and they've talked a big game about separating those brands, I don't think, if you look at their actions, that is not what they're trying to do. This watch shows that Seiko seems to be very happy with having a quite fuzzy and ambiguous line between Seiko Prospex and Grand Seiko. The next hot take out of this is that Seiko has clearly heard all of social media, influencer, YouTube commentary around the need to improve their movements and be more like the Swiss, and decided to give all of those people a big, fat middle finger. What Seiko has done here is followed their trend, their idea of how a watch is valued and priced. For everyone, not for everyone else, something I have found from my channel and doing a poll is it's actually only the very vocal commenters and YouTubers that care so much about this. But for them, and for so many, as I say, sort of YouTube personalities, you select a movement, that movement then sets the price of the watch, and then you design and finish the watch in line with the price that was set by your movement. Seiko sees that argument and spits in its face. Seiko, if you look across all of their models, does it very differently. For them, they set the price of a watch, they then design the watch to that price, and they then select, frankly, the cheapest movement that they can put in that watch, in that design, at that price. This watch is a perfect example of that design philosophy. And you might not like it. You might wish they did something different. This watch, I think, rams home that Seiko simply doesn't look at watches, movements, and prices the way that a lot of YouTubers do. Okay, so hot take number 3. Let's talk about the pricing here. And this is, again, a place where you really see the hybridization and the blurring of the lines between Prospex and Grand Seiko with this watch. They want 7,500 Australian dollars for that. I think on one level that price is fanciful. the movement, the design, the finishing from a Prospex watch, the specs in terms of dive depths and everything simply don't line up with what you would expect to see from the Prospex brand. Compared to the Marine Master 300, this watch is maybe comparable with it, maybe worse. It's line ball, and yet it's basically double the price. So looking at this watch from a Prospex line, the pricing is insane and makes no sense. Looking at this watch through the lens of someone who maybe kind of likes the Grand Seiko design philosophy for their dive watches but doesn't want to spend $10,000, maybe this starts to make sense. If you don't look at the $7,500 through the lens of Prospex, but instead look at it through the lens of, do you want to spend $10,800 on a Grand Seiko? Would you be prepared to give up the high beat movement? Would you be prepared to give up a little bit of the finishing around the edges in order to save $3,500? Then maybe you would. And in that world, maybe this watch does start to make sense. So the pricing of this watch is really, again, it comes back, it reinforces this idea of blurring the lines. It's a little, from a Prospex point of view, it doesn't really make sense. But from a Grand Seiko point of view, this watch is a bargain. I'm going to finish this up by just looking at the watches and saying, what is my hot take on the look? In short, I don't like them. And it comes back to this hybridization as well. The parts of this watch which are clearly derived from the Prospex line, which I'm going to say is the overall case shape, the dial treatment, furniture, indices, etc. I think they're top notch. I think they look fantastic and would be really a great basis for any watch moving forward. The parts of this watch which to me look Grand Seiko inspired, the bezel, the case finishing, the edge cuts on the bezel color choices just don't work for me. They're in the same way as, frankly, the normal Grand Seiko designs, diver designs, just don't work for me. They look overdone, overblown, overthought, over everything. I think when Grand Seiko sits down to design their tool watches, they go overboard and they really need some editing and some reining back. And I think that same problem that the Grand Seiko dive watches have with these watches here, they come across as just a little toy-like, a little overwrought, and I don't like them very much. On the other hand, maybe they're going to sell out, or maybe they will sell out all 1,300, or I think it's 1,900 between the two, in Japan and other Asian markets super quickly, and what we in the West think is irrelevant. I don't know, but I can tell you I don't particularly like the look. Okay, so that's it. That's my hot take, or actually I think it was my 4 hot takes on the new Seiko Prospex divers, SLA055 and 057. A real mix of styles, a hybrid between Seiko and Grand Seiko. What are your thoughts on this watch? Does it make sense to you? Can you make sense of it? Or do you think this is crazy? Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.